The Trifling Loss. A chill January wind was blowing on the crystal clear water rushing through the Varuna River. Karuna, the queen of Kashi, with her 100 companions, was on her way to bathe. She was going to the stone ghat in the Jambak Grove of a solitary village far away from the royal palace. By the decree of the king, the road and the ghat were deserted that morning. The people living in the huts nearby had left. So the riverbank was lonely and somber. Only the cooing of birds was resounding in the Jambak Grove. On that day, the river was turbulent in the blowing, frigid north wind. The enchanted waves glittered in the golden sunlight, flooding the water. The river appeared like a dancing maiden, adorned with 1,000,000 sparkling gems. Abashed, the sweet murmur of the river. Their playful arms was as delicate as lotus stalks, intoxicating the restless river. The laughter and chatter of the frolicking women filled the air, wafting to the sky. When the bathing was done, and when all the women were coming out of the water, the queen said, "Ah, this biting cold is making me shiver all over. Dear friends, light a fire and let me stave off this frigid cold in its warmth." Her companions went into the flower garden to gather twigs and straw. Engrossed in their merrymaking, they were tugging at the branches, when all of a sudden, in a jovial voice, the queen called after them, saying, "All of you, please gather here. See that hut over there? Set it on fire for me, so that I may warm my hands and feet in its heat." Saying which, the queen broke out in uncontrollable laughter. Maliti pleaded, saying in a doleful tone, "What a joke you're making, Queen Mother. Why should we set it on fire? It might belong to a holy man, or a poor man, or even a foreigner. We know nothing at all." Angered, the queen ordered, "Take this bleeding heart out of my sight." Enthralled in making fun, the cruel companions, intoxicated by their youth's passion, set the hut on fire in mad obsession. The dense smoke from the fire was rising to the sky in spirals. In no time it began to roar, scattering bursts of sparks flying around. Hundreds of flaming tongues filled the sky. As if sprouting from the netherworld, there came hordes of flaming serpents, hoods of flame, and swaying in the wind, the roaring serpents leapt into the sky. To the ears of the queen, wrapped in destruction, it was the tune of ruination. The cry of fear stopped the blithe singing of the morning birds, and instead there came the clamor of a band of crows filling the air. The north wind raged, and the fire leapt from hut to hut in frenzied fury. The tongue of annihilation lapped up the small village. The queen, tired of her merrymaking, returned with her 100 companions through the desolate road in that January morning, carrying with her the flames of desire. At that time the king was in his court, seated on his judgment seat, when a band of his homeless subjects came to him to tell him humbly and dolefully and with trepidation the tale of their sorrowful state. The king, red-faced in shame, got up from his seat and left the court. He entered the queen's chamber, and in an unusual time, and said, "My queen, what kind of conduct is this? By what royal right have you burnt the homes of these poor subjects?" Angered, the queen said, "How can you call those homes? Only a few decrepit huts are gone. How much loss is there in the world in that? How much treasure is spent in just one moment of pleasure for the queen?" The king, holding back his anger, said, "I know that as long as you are the queen, you will never understand the loss a poor man suffers from the loss of his hut. But I'll make you feel it in a hard way." At the command of the king, a maid removed the queen's adornments and mercilessly replaced the royal garments, resplendent as the rising sun, with the worn-out garb of a poor beggar woman. While leaving her on the street, the king said, "By begging from door to door, you will raise the money to rebuild all the huts which will burn down to satisfy your short-lived sporting pleasure. I am giving you 1 year, and at its end you, young lady, will return to the royal court, and after bowing to all, you will tell the extent of the loss to the world suffered from the destruction of those old huts."